All right, so it is on the hour. We've only got a couple people that have joined, so maybe we'll give it another minute or so before we get started. And for anybody that has joined already, if you have any questions that you would like us to answer, please feel free to drop those in the chat at any time.
And also, I think it's soon enough, I'm going to drop in the link to where the recordings will eventually be posted and where the last office hours is. So I'm sure we'll get that question again somewhere later in the hour going, is the session recorded and where can I find it? But we can post it again then.
All right, so we'll kick it off with some introductions. So first of all, thank you to everybody who has joined us today for the December Analytics office hours. I will say, just to reiterate, this session is being recorded. It is only those of us that are on video and microphone that are being recorded. The chat is not, so you can feel free to add questions in the chat if you want. Those are not being recorded, just those of us on video and audio, of course. So my name is Mandy. I'm one of the Adobe Analytics Champions. Myself and Jason Egan are the organizers for these office hours. And today we have fellow champions Jeff, Jennifer, and Jason Jamnick, who are going to be answering your questions today. So I will pass it over for each of them to give a brief introduction.
Okay,
Jeff,
who wants to go
I don't know. Jen, you can go first.
Yes, you can tell we're very organized, but at least we have a very small audience. Maybe in YouTube it'll grow. But hi, I'm Jen. I'm work for Torstar up in Canada, which is one of Canada's largest media publishers, focusing mainly on newspapers, but we have a lot of different digital ventures. I've been an Adobe champion for the past 3 years and hope to keep that up. And you've probably seen me around on other webinars, often with Jeff. We're co-hosts of a NOM East user group, and you'll also see me quite a bit on Experience League. So I'll probably be doing shameless promotions of go to Experience League several times throughout this session. So over to Jeff.
Hi, everyone. So yes, my name is Jeff Bloomer. I'm the digital analytics manager over here at Kroger Personal Finance. If you haven't heard of Kroger, we are the largest grocery retailer in the United States. And Kroger Personal Finance, we go to market here by partnering with third parties and scaling by doing just that. And we do 3 major products called gift cards, money services, and credit cards by partnering with a company called US Bank. And so that is my job here is digital analytics, of course. And so that is my job here doing dashboards. And so working with workspace and helping people understand standards with campaign tracking and so forth. So that is my job. And so we're looking forward to answering your questions today.
Hey everybody, my name is Jason Jamnick. I manage the web analytics for Follett Higher Education, and we partner with schools to sell course materials and general merchandise products to students across the country and some in Canada as well. And I've been working with Adobe Analytics for 7 or 8 years, so I'm looking forward to answering some questions today. Thanks.
Excellent. I just realized I didn't actually introduce my background. So I'm a digital analyst at Best Buy Canada. So Jen and I are coming to you from the Great White North. And I've been working at Best Buy, recently moved to the new organization. I've been using analytics for just over 3 years now, and it's my first year in the Champions program. So definitely honored to be among all of these other great analytics champions as well. Jason Egan, do you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. I'll be more of a silent person on this, but I can speak up just quickly here. My name is Jason Egan. I work with Search Discovery, where I am a consultant and analytics architect. I've worked here for the last 9 years, in consulting for about the last 14 years, and working with Adobe technology, and even before that, for a significant amount of time. Familiar with analytics, launch, target, AEP, pretty much the whole stack. This is my first year on the Champions program as well.
All right. So with that being said, we will jump into some of our questions. So Jen, are you going to share a screen for the dashboard?
Yes. Yeah. Do you want me to share like the dashboard with kind of our notes, or do we want to kind of do it more as somebody is talking and kind of answering, if they want to share screens? I'm not sure how you want to handle this.
Yeah, so we can go ahead with the dashboard that you've already started creating. If questions come into the chat, we can make a new workspace to tackle those. We do have some questions that were submitted ahead of time. Some of them are carryovers from the previous office hours. So we can get started with that. And
All right.
so the first question that we got was, are these office hours recorded? Jen has so kindly put the link to the YouTube channel in the chat already. So these office hours will be posted on that YouTube channel, likely within a couple days. So that's where you can find the info for that.
Great. Yeah. So if anyone was in last month's office hours, you'll notice a lot of these are looking really similar to some of the content that was coming in. Again, we didn't get a lot of questions this time, but we thought maybe there was some stuff that we wanted to kind of, touch base on, or maybe get a different perspective on. So jumping into that again, to the fellow hosts, anyone who wants to speak up. So we had some questions around engagement. Some people were trying to look more from move from percentages to conversion based dashboards, and they were kind of wondering what type of goals or what kind of engagement stats that they might be interested in. So I kind of threw out a few, maybe from a slightly different perspective. Some of the common engagement measurements that we use quite a bit in ours is page views per visit or visits per unique visitor. If like us, you have something like a subscription model where content has been walled, I actually like to look at real content views, or kind of like content that hasn't been walled over our visits or unique visitor metrics. It kind of gives us a little bit more realistic view as opposed to tracking all the page views that have been walled, which really isn't all that real or good to look at, and kind of target it down to what's actually being consumed. So those are kind of things that you can kind of think about. And then for conversions, you have to think about, are they like one-time conversions, like a subscription model, where people are going to go in, buy a subscription, and that subscription is going to last a month or a year or however long your plans are. So it's not like a normal shopping cart, but you might want to look at subscriptions bought over walls shown, or subscriptions purchased per 1 million users, or subscriptions over how many, other types of promotional content was actually being displayed to a user. Like, you have to play with it, look at what your own site is doing, and, come up with stuff that actually makes sense to you and to your business, something that's going to be helpful. Then you've got like multiple conversions, shopping cart purchases, newsletter signups, things that people are going to potentially consume more than once, potentially in the same visit, or, visit after visit after visit. So you could look at, things like items per checkout or average days between purchases. And then, of course, you've got campaign tracking. And I'm sure everyone's aware of campaign tracking, and Jeff can probably jump in to speak to this as well, because they do a lot of this.
Yes.
But you have external and internal campaigns. And Jeff, if you want to take this over, I think You love this topic, so.
Well, yes, and actually, I can speak to this because we've actually done this. So think about things that are actually happening within your site. So you've got traditional campaign tracking where you can follow what people are doing. Think about emails and your traditional marketing channels. But look at what you can even have going on with like eSpots and things like that. So we recently launched what's called an internal services hub. And so we're actually looking at what's going on with the eSpot interactions that we've recently gone and placed there. So if you're wanting to understand how people are engaging and moving between, say you have a mobile app, you can actually start tagging all of those pieces and looking at how people are engaging and moving through all of those, what we call, movable pieces. So all of that stuff is additional engagement, and what we've got down there. This is your customer investment. So I mean, especially in a retail space, I mean, you don't want to know just what they're doing with how they're buying things. I mean, Kroger has everything from recipes to all of this additional stuff. So as you start looking at how they're doing a recipe, if they're doing stuff out on social, all of these things. So now you can look at a much richer type of engagement. So that's what you want to do with your engagement. So like it says at the top, engagement is sticky. So that's what you want to do.
Great.
Yeah, one thing I've been noticing more with partnering with internal marketing and product teams is whenever we have a new feature, whether it's a button or a new kind of method of shopping for products or a new type of campaign, I'm creating more and more like engagement measurements for people to see kind of what kind of penetration those things have. So like, okay, so we got 1,000 visitors yesterday, but like how many were clicking on my new link, and just create some simple calculated metrics to divide clicks or dollars by the totals so that they can see how quickly it's ramping up. And it's, I don't know, it's something in the air, but that's been asked more and more lately.
Another thing I was going to bring up about that, the other piece that you can also do is start looking at the attribution. So look at the attribution modeling now. So Adobe's given us this fun tool to work with where you can start looking at the different models. So you can look at sorry, my my memory's going to fail me right here at the moment when I want to talk about this. But look at everything that's out there as it relates to attribution. You've got a panel that you can easily bring in, and I'm going to be talking about this a little bit more. Spoiler later on. So Adobe's asked me to talk about this. So but take a look at attribution as to how you can look at marketing channels, but you can use this for all kinds of different dimensions. So try this with campaign tracking and other things. You can also change your expiration on campaign tracking. You lost me. Well, I think you lost me there for just a second.
We did. Can you repeat that last?
Yeah, I'm going to repeat myself. So you do not have to use 30 days. You don't have to use 1 day. So for instance, like internal campaign tracking, I mentioned that earlier. That's not an out-of-the-box thing. You need to set up your own variable for that. So you can use 1 day. You can use 6 days. So determine what's right for you on those kinds of things, and talk to your marketing people. But 30 days is what it is out of the box. But you can also create another variable for campaign tracking as well. You can create 5. You can create 3. Go out there and find, there's other stuff out there as for, around campaign tracking. Sorry, I might beat this horse a little bit, but, there are ways that you can do things around this, to understand your campaign tracking a little bit more and this engagement. We have another one for 90 days because we actually have a B2B partner where our people aren't converting after 30 days. It may take longer for some people to convert on certain things. So don't just take the industry standard sometimes around campaign tracking, because it depends on what you do as a business. 30 days may not be what you need to do, or maybe you have shorter conversion times. So don't take what everybody else is doing. You need to take a look at what your business is doing and do what's right for you.
Right. And you may not always need to even create new variables for those different attribution models. You can actually use the custom attribution modeling right in Workspace. So you can set up one default, the one that you're going to be using all the time. And then if somebody comes out to you and says, oh, I need to look at this at a 6-month attribution, you go, okay.
Yeah.
Hit a couple of buttons, and actually you can even put it side by side with your default. So you can see what your conversion was against your default model, which could be 30 days, it could be 1 week, it could be within the same visit, and compare it side by side with a 6-month attribution. So there's lots of different ways to do this. So, and if you're using a lot of your variables and you're worried about, running out or just trying to keep them all straight, the built-in attribution modeling in Workspace could be your friend there, wherein you don't have to tag everything multiple times.
I will say one more thing about this with the attribution. Adobe has recently updated their guidance as it relates to campaign tracking. They have actually said to make the expiration 1 day and then change your attribution models as it relates to that, because if you have it at 30 days, your last touch, look at how last touch is affected if you have your 30-day expiration. So look at the documentation as how it explains what happens with last touch if you have a 30-day expiration. It's very fascinating to see what happens. So I would recommend reading that documentation. I'm actually going to make sure to link that and make sure that that's provided after the recording as well. So it's very fascinating to see how last touch is affected if you have a 30-day expiration. So I'll make sure that that's included, and we can go ahead and move on to YouTube.
Jeff, I have a question as well.
Hey,
The question / comment, something that I guess you keep in mind just as we're talking about all of this attribution methodology. When I hear things like 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, the challenge here too is the reality that most browsers with intelligent tracking, the ITP and all these changes coming around, it's pretty rare, frankly, nowadays to have cookies maintained longer than 7 days, in all honesty. And I feel like maybe that's partly the guidance, there around Adobe saying 1 day and then tweaking attribution models, because reality is people aren't keeping them around that long. And as we go into 2023 and beyond, third-party cookies themselves are going to see a massive decrease in support. And just a comment is, consider planning ahead for server-side generated cookies and IDs to maintain those things, and how you might architect that in the future. I'm sure Adobe's working on a solution for that internally, probably. But just something to consider and keep in mind, I think, in general.
Mm-hmm.
Always something to keep in mind. Cookie apocalypse is almost here.
Cookie apocalypse. I can't even say it.
Before we move on to the next topic, Jen, do you want to quickly demo where to find the attribution panel? And maybe just show some of our users what it actually is, make it a little bit more real for them?
Sure. So if I were to drag in a freeform table into here, so I know that there's multiple different places that you can do attribution, and I am going to apologize because this is demo data. I don't know exactly what metrics I actually have to work with in here. So this could be very, very interesting. I don't know what the default settings are on any of these either. So if any of the champions have actually dug through this, I'm going to see some of the default stuff. I can't actually add attribution modeling onto. I'm just going to try checkout. I've got something available on it? Yes, it does. Okay, so here are checkouts, and I'm going to maybe pair this. Hopefully there is product data. We'll see. Doing data analysis on the fly when you're not sure what data you have to work with is always challenging. Okay, so here's maybe a checkout against this product. Now, if I wanted to maybe try a non-custom attribution model, I'm just going to do the little trick. Maybe you don't know about this, but if you hold down Control or Command on a Mac and drag an item over to the side, it's going to lock up on me. It's not going to. You can actually make a copy of it if this screen share session is actually going to work. There it goes. Wow, I am so sorry about the delay. There, I made lots of copies. Oh, that helps. All right, so what you can actually do is on each of these, right now they're completely identical, but you can hit the little gear and use non-default attribution model. And you have lots of different models to work with. Last touch, first touch, linear, participation, like tons and tons and tons of stuff. So I don't know, let's do a participation looking back in a 30-day look back window, see what that does to our data.
Because we all love participation models.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, at least we can see that all of a sudden things are starting to look a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily that that's exactly what you want to use, but that's as simple as your workspace attribution models get. You can actually play with things. You can actually do maybe a last touch in, I don't know, let's do 90 days.
90, yeah.
Apply. And well, that really didn't make a whole lot of difference there. Again, I'm probably using a really bad metric for this. If I was in my own data, I would know exactly which metrics to use. It would make a much, much more telling story. So I do apologize for that. Are there any specific attribution
If you
panels?
go under panel, there is the attribution one.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that one there you can drag it in above or below whatever panels you're currently working on, and that will let you.
I probably got it up.
And it'll let you look at the different attribution models
400 rows.
for your metrics.
Right. Up was probably faster. There we go.
There we go.
Almost.
Almost there. There we go. Okay, so, and now you've got a complete attribution panel where you can have your success metric, channel, and your included models and your look back windows. So let's see.
Easy. An easy one. You can bring in, sales or, well, you can bring in orders, I guess. Online revenue. There you go.
Online orders, yeah.
Online orders or revenue. There you go.
Let's see what channels I've got to work with. So you can use your marketing channels. You can use, so let's use our marketing channels. I'm going to assume there's something nice in there. Famous last words. And again, you have access to your included models. So right now it looks like there's multiple selected, last touch, first touch, and linear. So why don't we just leave that there and we'll say a look back of 30 days.
And let's see. So Kate Clark is saying, I'm using a visit participation model for new orders against pages, but only want a subset of pages. Any hit level segment I create does not work against the participation metric. And there isn't anything common I can filter the pages by. Any ideas how I get around this?
Subset of pages. That's an interesting question.
New orders. Okay, so new orders against pages, but only want a subset of pages.
because you're right. I'm assuming, and Kate, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that when you do the segment and say visit contains these pages, you still get like every other page coming back in your attribution model, correct?
So I'm wondering, okay, so I'm wondering if this has to do with the issue with a subset of pages, because what you're probably getting, this might be a similar issue to what I ran into, because those orders contain other products. And so what you're getting is that you're getting all of the pages related to those orders, because you cannot do what's called a sub hit for just those products. Apologize for the background noise.
What do I tell my customer? Too bad, so bad.
So the thing is you cannot, and this is one of my apologies again. So you cannot get what's called a sub hit of products, because you cannot break out just the products that are in an order. The only way that you can get any kind of a sub breakout of any kind of an order if you were to actually go into Report Builder, because of what's going on. And so the problem that you're dealing with, Kate, is because the reason you can't get the subset of pages is you're getting all of the pages related to all of the stuff that's in your order, regardless of what's going on. That is my suspicion of why you can't get the subset of pages, because your orders are pulling back all of the products regardless. Somebody tell me I'm wrong, but that is my suspicion of what's going on.
That actually sounds pretty accurate in the way that I know how products is working. I've spent a lot of time, because we use products a little funny. We actually use it for like 20 different purposes, not just our purchase products. We use it for other stuff because we needed merchandising keywords to stitch together multiple things happening on the same call. I have worked very, very hard to figure out how to create segments to pull back only the items I want, and it is complex and kind of janky. And if you have the ability, taking it out to Report Builder, or even if you have a data lake that's processing your data and you actually have full access to SQL, that's probably a much easier way to go about doing it.
Yeah, that's my number one beef with Workspace, is that you can't get it down to the subject.
I think that's a lot of people's number one beef when it comes to it.
And if you go out and search for it, there's actually a request out there in Adobe Analytics, but I don't know if they're ever going to address it.
No, I mean, I've been working with our data lake team to actually process our products data and to create like a many-to-one relationship, so that when they're doing their SQL, they can actually look for only the rows of data that are X products and do the back up to the original hit row to get data, and they're still working on it. They've been working on it for like a year. So if we ever figure that out, I'll try and share some of those learnings.
And I think that kind of a great segue into the next question, Jen, when you mentioned Report Builder. So the next question we got was, where'd it go? Are there any works on capability to create pivot tables in the Adobe Workspace interface? By doing so, we would save considerable time manipulating data spreadsheets, and we can spend more time doing actual analyses.
Yeah, and for Jeff's purpose, I had to throw in Clippy to our sheet. Sadly, well, I mean, we're not privy to like everything that's on the Adobe roadmap, but again, like last month, I'm going to highly suggest you go to Experience League and post an idea. I'm just going to post this link for everyone. So post ideas for improvement, for Adobe improvements. Oh my God, my spelling is horrible. I better fix that before I send this. So, wow, that link came out looking a little weird in the chat, but it should work. All right, so now, while we don't know of any way to do pivot tables in Workspace, there is pulling your data out using Report Builder. And I'm assuming that some of the question around the redoing work or having to, I'm assuming that people are probably trying to rebuild the pivot table every month. I could be wrong. Maybe that person isn't here. But if I pull up my sample report builder report where I've already pulled in some data, if you look at like my data sample 1 where I'm pulling back date for a month that has 31 days. So the highlighted area is where I've got the pivot table, selected to. So when I have my pivot table, everything looks kind of good. It's, showing all my dates. But say my month changes to something like February, which only has 28 days. My selected rows include these blanks where we don't have any days for February. So you end up with a pivot table that has these weird blanks. And that's probably an annoyance for a lot of people, which is probably why every month they're going in and going, change my date range or change my pivot data range. But what you can actually do is you can create a flexible data range for your pivot table. So you don't have to rebuild this every time and you won't end up with the blanks. And it's pretty simple. So here's my flexible table right here. It's currently set up to my data sample 1. So I'm showing the 31 days of data, but I created a named range using a formula. So it's an offset. So it's offset wherein I choose the cell or the worksheet that I want. So data sample 1, and I say start at cell A1, and it's locked into place with dollar signs. The 0, 0 indicates I don't want any offset by row or offset by column. I just want it exactly where it is. Column 1, row 1. The next part is the height. So because height is where the changes are going to occur, I'm actually using a count A function. And for those who don't know, count A counts the number of rows that have data in them. So any rows that have no data, it will ignore. And so I say, okay, go back to my sheet and look at everything in the A column. So $A to $A. So count it, like count the row if it's got data in it anywhere in the A column. And then the last part is what my width is going to be. And because I've got a 4 column width, I'm using 4. And to make your named range, you just go into formulas, go into your name manager, and you can create a new name. And I've created one called flexible, which has this data in it. So you can kind of look at it. Name flexible refers to, and that's where I put my formula. And so when I create my pivot table, my date source actually, instead of saying data sample, 1, A1 to D32, I actually reference the named range. So that means that this pivot table, if I come back to my data range and I delete some data, so now I only have up to the 20th, refresh, my pivot table has now completely changed shape to match the data that's been returned. So that is one little trick you can do to kind of get rid of those blanks or, whatever, so that you can kind of build something out that you need. And you don't necessarily need to use the count A in the height. If you're doing your date range across the top and your set dimensions down, you could use your count A at a row level as opposed to a column level. You could even have it grow in both directions. So if your table is constantly changing width and constantly changing height, you can use a separate count A in both areas.
And this is great to use with the report builder extract. So for anybody that's never really used report builder before, it's an extension that you can add on, and it lets you do basically the same type of data pulls that you would in Workspace, but directly into Excel. So this is great if you've got, weekly or monthly reports and, you're worried about having to, change the size or shape of your dashboard. This is a great way to make sure that it updates automatically. So definitely a really good tool.
I am trying to get it. Yeah, I'm trying to get it up. Unless it's like behind my screen share. No, I don't know where it's not loading for me, but it is a really cool tool and I wish I could show it to you.
And do you still have to grant access to Report Builder for each user?
Uh,
Set them up?
yes. What
so.
I have done in my organization is I've created a user group, which is basically I call tools, and I've got kind of the advanced tools like Report Builder and stuff in it. And then as soon as somebody needs Report Builder, I just add them to the user group, so I don't have to add it to individual users. And then I can see every user that's got it by just going to the user group and going, oh, there's all my Report Builder people.
Excellent. I'm glad this is recorded. I'm going to come back to this one. It's a great tip.
Actually, I've organized my entire organization using user groups. I keep on having to slap some people's wrists every time they add somebody directly to a product, because I'm like, if I change permissions, if there's something new and I add it to the group, I want everyone to get it. I don't want to have to go through every individual user and change the permissions. So I have literally everything set up through user groups.
Yeah, user groups make it a lot easier to maintain people.
They do, but it does take a little bit of work to get it set up the first time.
Yeah, it can make maintenance over time a lot easier though. So that's a lot of things
Absolutely.
I find with analytics is you have to weigh the amount of effort to set it up at the beginning with the amount of maintenance overall. And typically stuff that takes more time to set up in the beginning will actually be better in the long run because the maintenance is a lot easier. Whereas those like quick and simple solutions for setting something up will often mean that down the road you have to spend more time to maintain it. So I find a lot of times it's worth, spending that extra bit of time to set something up that is a little bit more automated, will need less manual work. And it just has a lot of benefits and it reduces the amount of human error too, if you have stuff set up. Because that's one of the things I've noticed a lot with analytics is it's a lot of human error can come into play when you're trying to build something out, when you're changing something. Whereas if you have, these formulas here where it's going to update your date or your data range automatically, then you don't have to worry about doing it manually and forgetting a row or forgetting to update it.
Yeah. And another tip, actually similar to what Mandy was saying, anything that you can automate. Usually in my report builders, I have a tab called date ranges, and I set up my date ranges in this tab. And I actually set them up using Excel formulas. It's not set up here. I just put in, like hard-coded dates because this was just a sample. But normally I actually use Excel's functions equals, day equals year equals today minus whatever. I actually create those formulas to create my rolling date ranges so that I don't have to worry about it. But in the event that I need to rerun a report for 2 months ago because somebody misplaced theirs and they want to see that data, I don't have to go back and change every single call in my report builder and then update it and then rerun it. I just go and put in the dates manually, refresh all, get the report, undo my dates, go back to my calculations, my formulas, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, that's a really great tip.
Yeah, and to comment on your issue that nothing's popping up, that happens to me sometimes too. Sometimes you can sign out through the first dropdown, but usually I just have to close the file. Close all your Excel files, right? So it kind of refreshes your report builder. And it works.
Yeah. So every once in a while it gets a little temperamental. Let's just put it that
as
way.
all analytics tools do.
That is so true. So I apologize that I can't actually show this, but if anyone's interested in more of a deep dive of Report Builder, post in the chat. I mean, we can either do that as a follow-up to an office hours, or we can even turn it into a full-blown, like, hour-long user group session with one of the user groups. So absolutely. Okay, so let's go back to this. So I think the next question, again, was kind of like Adobe Analytics versus other analytics. So what percentage difference do you find acceptable between Adobe and other data sources? And this one's always a hard thing because there's so many different variables in what's been set up. How complex is your tracking? Are you using like a global suite? Is the analytics on every single instance across the board for your global? Is it in your mobile apps? Is it not in your mobile apps? So the numbers are going to obviously change. I tend to look more for trend lines. Is everything going up? Is everything going down? Is everything kind of like going along in the same sort of pattern as opposed to differences? However, I will say that for me, I don't think I've ever really seen much more than a 10% difference between our numbers. But I also know that I inherited a really simplistic GA implementation that isn't necessarily in all the places that we have data. So I know for a fact that the GA is not currently in the mobile app because it's the old Universal Analytics, which stopped working for that. And I've got to convert everything over to GA4. So I'm hoping to see some big improvements between my analytics when I get the GA4 rolled out. But I don't know. Is anyone else? Oh, yeah. Jason?
It really depends on like what other data sources you mean, right? Like, for example, if you're using the same tag manager to run a few different analytics programs, then it would make sense that if somebody blocks your tag manager, you're not collecting data for any of those. But if you're saying that your other data source is like your raw database that collects 100% of the orders, that's where I start seeing more and more over time, 10%, 15% differences. And then the last thing I've noticed, it really matters kind of getting down to the exact formula. How do you calculate different metrics you're trying to compare? Like, when you give a coupon code, is that included in your revenue? Well, maybe half your systems just takes the discount and half of them reflect it without the discount. So those kind of things are easy to miss. And then all of a sudden you run a big sale and it's like, wow, data looks terrible. But yeah, to your point, going back to like a specific date, like, hey, we had a build on November 15th and things started to trend 20% worse. That's usually where we try to start to.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. For our course sites, I tend to actually keep Google Analytics in GTM and I keep Adobe in Adobe Launch. And I know that's more work, but it does kind of give me a little bit of a separation of concerns. As in, I'm not relying on one tag manager that could block everything. But then it's I've got to use multiple tag managers for everything. So there are balances to everything. You have to figure out what works for you. And we just got a question in, so maybe we should address that as opposed to going on to the next thing right away. So I see from, I'm assuming it's Leah with a but I could be wrong. It might be Lee. Everyone pronounces their names differently. Oh, it's yes. Yay. Okay, good. I got it right the first try. Yep. I had a friend who was Lee and somebody kept calling her Lee and it drove her crazy. So I try to be mindful of pronunciations. So as you train your colleagues to use Workspace, what tips have you given that are the most helpful? I do regular training to go over the tool, new features, and I would appreciate any good tips. Oh, right. Well, we could probably give tips out for like the rest of the hour, but we'll try not to. So I guess when I'm training people, I try to show them a lot of the little shortcuts, like I was showing you before. Don't always have to go back and find the metric that you want to use. If you're trying to do something in another table or like another freeform table or another area or use the control drag trick to duplicate it. It saves you so much time having to go back and try and find everything. Duplicate tables, right click, duplicate visualization, copy visualization, stuff like that. Like these little time saving tips that you get through your right-click context menu. And I was talking with Jeff about a tip the other day, so I think he should discuss that.
You're muted, Jeff.
Yeah, I got to get myself unmuted. Sorry, I was going to say I don't want to give away everything. I am kind of like stirring up a few things.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. But there are certain things that you can save yourself some time. Especially some of the people that when they're starting out, there are a number of things that, like for instance, when you have a number of your visualizations up top. When, for instance, you're trying to get any number of your visualizations across the top instead of trying to, I know that, Frederick and Eric a lot of times will say, when in doubt, right click. Well, yeah, right click will help you in certain ways out of your KPIs. But for instance, you can do a lot of duplication of things very quickly. And this is something that I'm actually going to be talking about more, that if you have something formatted a way that you like, just right click it and duplicate it, and move, create 5, 10 of them or whatever, and then just reuse them. And I can show you how to, and you just duplicate it and then, link it down to your KPIs down below. Very quick things like that. So there are more ways that you can very quickly do things like that. Reuse things from other reports. I would have to say that when they made the switch from reports over to workspace, it is a little bit harder sometimes to find your metrics than it was before. You could go over to reports and kind of like just look for all your things, where now you have to kind of search for stuff. And I also have better ways to find things than it was before. So I'm going to be, providing a lot of these things as we start going into Summit and stuff like that. So stay tuned.
Yes.
I was just saying, now you can copy a table into another panel, which has been awesome for a lot of my workspace.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just to answer the original question too, when I first started training people, I would be way too complicated, showing them advanced stuff that they'll never use. And I've really gotten to a place where we might have like 3 or 4 different training templates for different teams. I think it's really valuable if somebody's in marketing and they're going to use this range of dimensions and metrics more than somebody on another team, to try to customize the training a little bit for them, so that if they're coming from no experience or a little bit of experience in Adobe Analytics, it'll be a lot more relevant.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to steal Jeff's thunder a little bit here. Use tags.
Yes, use tags. Use them.
So I mean, this is train your users to use tags, but all both from a search perspective and to tag their own stuff. But there's tags where you can search, so you can type in a number sign and then see all this little icon. It looks like a little gift tag. Everything that's been tagged, with a certain tag, like calendar, no items found. Okay, so maybe that was a bad example, but let's try 20.
No, you're not going to find it in that one. Yeah. Just do it off of like the regular. If you use what was it?
Classification. There we go.
And this is one of the things that.
Yep.
So
this can be really great for helping your users know which segments they're supposed to use. At my old organization, we used to do a cleanup every year. We would go through all the custom segments and metrics that users had created, and the ones that actually do what they're supposed to do, we would mark as approved and share them out with everybody. That way, when people are going into workspace, they know which ones they're supposed to use, and tags are a great way to help keep that organized. Yep.
Or just to group stuff that maybe have a very disparate naming under a specific item, such as, this is all classification related, or this is all, product related, or maybe certain products, whatever, play around with it, figure out what works for you. But if stuff is tagged, it's so much quicker to find and so much, and then you just need to make sure that you're doing it. You can tag everything from your dimensions to your events. You can tag your reports, so then you can find reports by similar tags. There's a million and eight places that you can tag stuff. And because we're talking about tips, and I believe Jason brought this up as a suggested topic for a pro tip: custom rolling dates greater than 800 days.
Yeah, don't you love when you stumble upon kind of a bug and find a workaround, and you feel so good that you have to go onto Experience League and see if anybody else had that problem so you can try to help them out. That's kind of what happened here. But yeah, the problem is, and I added a note there that the default data retention is 25 months, so that's 750 days about. And but it depends on the contract. So a lot of organizations have more than 800 days. So I think when a lot of people build custom rolling date ranges, they start with the kind of date range builder to do rolling dates. And what you find is that if you do like starting with today minus X number of days, there's a max at 800. And so the workaround here, and we have a few examples down there.
I'll show you the example, but I am going to just show the first off this range. I was trying to do it, but I was a little slow following up.
Thank you.
Where you're actually using.
So if you can either type in the top boxes or use the date selector and click a bunch of times, right? But if you go back 1,000 days, it will actually show you more than 800 in the bottom after you click use rolling dates. And then as long as you don't engage with that arrow, because it'll drop you back down, then you're good. So you can do like a year over year over year over year or whatever kind of comparison you want to do to get around that.
So I'm going to show the example as opposed. So here, where I started with a fixed date range, much longer than 800 days ago. Unfortunately, there's no data in this particular suite, but you'll notice that this is just started. I just literally chose a fixed date range, which was 90 days. And then I created a secondary one, which was a rolling version of that, because all you need to do is click on make rolling, and it automatically, again, as Jason said, don't touch your arrows. You will actually see the numbers are greater than 800.
Yeah. And those multi-year rollings have definitely become more common since COVID, with the last couple of years of sales data being so wild.
Oh yeah, I know. You wouldn't believe how many times it's like, can we get pre-COVID sports numbers for the newspaper? Yeah. Because obviously sports wasn't actually running for quite a long time during COVID. So doing comparisons against 2020 and 2021 is not exactly a realistic comparison.
If we can go back to like the question about tips, I have the tip that I would share with people is, get people to make use of the Adobe resources. Have you got the new homepage on here, Jen?
If you don't mind. Know if I got the new homepage on here.
So the tip that I give everybody is like there's the new homepage, which I think is way better than the old one in my personal opinion. But also it's got those couple of options on the side where you can get the pre-built reports, which I haven't really used that much. But the third one, I think it's called training or tutorials, or I forget the exact word that it is on there. Okay.
So I'm currently on the old. So for anyone who is still on the old view, this is the old view of your workspace.
Yeah.
But
so the word is learning. That's what it's called. So there's a new section on the left-hand side where, you can find like little videos to get tips on how to do stuff. And I would recommend like new users take advantage of these. A lot of these have been put together by Adobe. Some of them have been, influenced by those of us that have been using analytics for a long time. And these are all great resources, especially for new users. And they're built right into Adobe, so you don't even have to, go scour YouTube or Experience League. They're all right there for you.
And I'm going to do a shameless promotion, but actually two shameless promotions. By all means, when you're training people, tell them to check out Experience League because there's lots of information there, or to join up with one or multiple user group sessions, and then they can watch webinars and ask questions.
Definitely. And I think since we do have like 5 minutes left, Jen, I was going to go ahead and put this question out to the entire group, including people that are actually in the session, to see if they've come across this, because this is something that I had a colleague ask me, and it's related to campaign tracking of all things. So I wanted to see if anybody has come across this issue, and it relates to YouTube. So they were trying to actually implement campaign tracking against a description within YouTube. So they went ahead and they put the URL into the description, put the campaign tracking, so $CID equals blah, 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 into the description. And then when they hit save, it wiped out the campaign tracking at the end of the description after they hit save. And so they came to me and they said, "Hey, Jeff, why is it wiping out my campaign ID?" I'm like, I have no idea. I actually went and I tried it, and it worked for me on one of my links, but then we were going out and checking some of the descriptions, and evidently it did it for one. It worked on like one of them, and then another one evidently it didn't. I said, "Well, tell me what happens when you check it with them tomorrow." And then I said, "Guess what? I'm going to ask my Adobe Champion friends and and my user group and all that stuff, and see what they have to say and ask them what their experience has been." So I put it to the group, what has your experience been with trying to put any kind of campaign tracking against YouTube?
That's a good question.
And I will
I don't know if our editorial team is doing
YouTube
that,
channel out there for you guys to take a look at, because I was stumped. I had no idea as to why they were having a problem.
And you said some of them worked. Do they still work, those ones?
Well, yeah, it looked like a couple worked. So
Yeah.
I will show you.
Do you want to take control of sharing?
Sorry, say again, please.
Did you want to share your screen? Do you want me
Yeah,
to?
I will. Yeah, I'll share my screen. So let's see here. I will share my screen and go over to, let's see, window. Yeah, I don't want to share my whole screen. I don't think everybody wants to look at a 49-inch screen. Let's do this. Share.
Ooh, Inception.
Ooh, screenception.
No, yeah, that's what I thought. Let me move this off to the side as a separate one. Let's do that. There we go. No, we'll do there. Sure. Okay, so I need to go back to, okay, you should be seeing my screen. I'm going to go back to YouTube, and I need to go to the original Kroger there. Okay, so this is the channel, and this was the video. And if I scroll down here just a little bit, if I blow this out, so you can see that's the link that they were able to successfully tag. So you can see that's the link. If I click on it, there's the successful campaign tracking code. However, if I come back here and I go to the shorts and I scroll down to this one, you said it was that particular video, and I go to the comments, or no, not the comments, sorry, the description. And I go to this, you can see that there is no campaign tracking code in that. If I click on that, the campaign tracking code that they tried to apply to that one was wiped out. And she kept putting it on there and hitting save, and it kept getting wiped out.
I think Google's got some splaining to do.
Yeah. So you have not seen this happen?
I don't. So it almost looks like maybe there's something going on with the shorts descriptions as opposed to the regular video descriptions, and it's treating it differently. I don't know if our company is posting any shorts. I'm going to actually inquire from our editorial team and see if anyone's doing anything. But that's really, really odd. And I don't know if have you seen if there's any YouTube forums about that? Because that seems like that would be affecting a lot of people.
Yeah, well, I was playing around with it earlier, and I couldn't replicate the issue.
Oh.
Yeah, I was so I told them that I'd put it out to you guys to see if you had seen that. If anybody out there in the Adobe universe had encountered this. And so I'm
Is there a character limit? Is that the last thing they were adding to make it like too long?
Are you
in the description?
I don't think so. I don't know. That's a good question. And maybe it's making the description too long. I don't know. I thought the descriptions were pretty darn. I thought that that they were allowing for a lot of words in the description, but maybe not. I don't know. That's a good question.
It could be shorts or different, like you said.
All right.
Okay.
So we have hit the hour mark, and don't want to keep people from next meetings and if anything else they have going on. Just want to say thank you to all of our champions today that have come out and shared their knowledge. And thank you to everyone who has submitted questions. Our next office hours will be in January, still finalizing the date and time, but likely somewhere around January 17th or 18th. So hopefully we will see you at our next office hours. And feel free to leave us any feedback or questions that you have either on the YouTube channel or on Experience League. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.